It's here. The man, the myth, the legend. The voice. Monday match analysis. Gil Gross. I you know him. You love him. Welcome back to the channel, Gil.
Thanks for the intro, Phil. Always a pleasure to be on. Great to see you. Great to chat, and looking forward to getting into it.
It's I'm very excited to have you back on the channel. You've been very busy. Gil's been in France. He's admitted that he loves the clay. He's jealous of Europeans playing on clay.
I said that.
He did. I needed to get that on record. Gil is, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, jealous of Europeans for playing on clay all the time. It's a different world, and I miss it dearly, especially red clay.
It's fun. There's something romantic about it. Uh, it helps my game because I play with a lot of spin.
Okay.
And yeah, I just in Tucson, when I'm in Tucson, I'm playing in 2,000 feet of altitude and like
Okay.
100-degree heat. And it's just so fast. And I need to string my racket like 5 pounds tighter. So anyway, that's my complaint for the day.
The one complaint. The one complaint. So what are you stringing at normally?
I'd like to be at like 46, 47,
Okay.
but in Tucson I gotta be at from 50 to 52.
That's my normal, to be honest. Like 52, 48 to 52 is usually my range. If I go below that, I'm either teaching or my it's one of my rackets I just played today. It hasn't been strung in probably a year and a half, and I feel the difference, and it's kind of pissing me off how the tension feels like it's at 40 right now. I don't know what it
Oh, I'm
is.
sure it is.
It probably is. Um, we are excited to have Gil on once again to bring us a preview for Roland Garros men's draw. And this year is, we have to point out the elephant in the room. This is Rafa's first year of not playing the infamous tournament that the trophy should be named after, to be honest. If that trophy isn't named, or if something big isn't named after Rafa, I don't like. He played with a freaking statue at the stadium already, and played in a stadium in Spain that's already named after him. But while he was playing, like, what's the impact here now that Rafa is officially retired and the French Open is, the Roland Garros is now without the King of Clay?
Well, last year felt different as well because you knew that he didn't really have much of a chance to win it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the first round match against Zverev, and it wasn't really the send off that you would have hoped. And luckily, they're gonna kind of run it back, do it properly. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited to see what they do for Rafa. For this kind of retirement ceremony 2.0 here. And by
Mm-hmm.
the way, Nadal didn't really want a whole big thing last
No,
year because he was still in competition mode, and I totally understand that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do for him this year, but it's uh it's insane what he's done here, and it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's the most unbreakable big three record in my opinion.
hundred
And
percent.
I really think that the slam tallies can go down, and I think they ultimately will. I don't think that like 24 which is what Novak is at right now. I don't think that's like unbreakable or that's going to last for a really, really, really long time. No,
Okay.
I think you and I will both see that go down in our lifetime, but 14 RG is no.
No, and I think that's what's, when we talk about all records across all sports, there are some records that you think about that are unbreakable. I genuinely think Rafa's 14. Like just saying it out loud is like, and we go back generations when we grew up, we were always looking at Sampras's record. We were always looking at Jimmy Connors. We were looking at those while Federer, Novak, and Rafa were coming up. But to say that Rafa actually has more French Opens than most of those guys, it's another level of greatness. And I think that's what's really, I guess, that's something that we always reflect on as tennis fans, right?
Yeah, it's the ability to do it so consistently, to not have an off year, to not have an off match. I mean, Christopher Clary decided to write a book on Rafa, right?
Hmm.
And it was very like the whole angle of the book was how can somebody dominate this much on clay?
Yeah.
That is literally the Rafa book.
Hmm.
And look, there's a lot more to his career, and I think it bothers Nadal fans when he doesn't get enough credit for how good he was on the other surfaces, and
Hmm.
it bothers Nadal fans rightly so when people only talk about how much of a fighter he is, as if
Hmm.
there's not other stuff there, which there always has been.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, nobody has ever, and this is something that you can't take away from Rafa, even though he statistically like lost this slam race, which was ultimately going to define this GOAT race.
Hmm.
Something you can never take away from Rafa is that he is the most dominant player we've seen on a single surface in the history of our sport.
Yeah. 100% in that regard too, looking at like we knew Rafa was great, and this is maybe more tailored towards Rafa fans in general, but we knew how great Rafa was altogether. But when he beat Federer at Wimbledon, that was the all in all be all moment to say like he deserves to be with the rest, right?
Yeah, that was a you're talking about 2008, right?
Yeah. When he
And
beat Federer in that literal night match on center court.
yeah, that was when, at least in the Federer rivalry, which was the primary rivalry at the top of the men's game by far at that time. That was when it became more than Roger's going to win on the quick surfaces and Rafa's going to win on clay, and that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, Nadal made more progress against Roger on the other surfaces than Roger made against Rafa on clay, ultimately.
Yeah. And I like how you put that too, because it's almost like Rafa looked for ways to beat Federer on the other surfaces versus Federer trying to find ways to beat Rafa on clay, right?
I think they both wanted it badly.
Hmm.
Matchup, like the way the matchup was constructed, Nadal almost seemed like he was designed as a player to beat Roger. Uh, but they both wanted it really bad. I think Rafa deserves a lot of credit, though. He was not okay with just letting Roger be the grass guy and kind of staying in his, like, he wanted to win Wimbledon because he liked Wimbledon, and I think he prioritized it in a big way for a long time in his career. Certainly until he won it, that became his main goal and
Hmm.
his North Star. And I think it wasn't easy for him after what was always a long, arduous clay court season to turn around and go back to work on the grass. But he made sure to do that. Like, he was practicing after winning Roland Garros titles. He was on grass 2 days later.
Yeah.
And a lot of, most players aren't built like that. Like, they're taking a week off.
Yeah. They're decompressing, but that's just a testament to who Rafa is as a player and as a person and his work ethic. And kind of going along those lines, going into Roland Garros, when we're looking at this draw, and bear with me for those that are watching this, I am going to try to show the draw while we do this. So let's see how this goes. Okay,
Perfect.
so
Yep.
we're gonna try this out today. Okay, so bear with me. So we're gonna break this down from Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and we're gonna go through the matchups. We're gonna go through everything in that regard, and we're gonna see how well this goes. I mean, if we look at Q1, the players that are in this part of the draw besides Sinner, it's we have let's see, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Did I go too far down? Let's see.
Draper is the highest seed opposite Yannick in this quarter.
Right here, right? I'm just trying
Yep.
to see if we can get all of them in one. Is that a little too small for you? Or is that good?
That's okay. I can read it.
You can read it?
Yep.
In terms of players in this side of the draw, we're looking at players like João Fonseca, Hurkacz, Menchik, Draper, Fokina, Rublev, Feast, Demonauer, Sinner, what are the matchups that you're looking at in this quarter that are really standing out to you at first glance?
You also have Gasquet's retirement match against Terrence Ottman in the first round. So I'm looking forward to that
That's
and
true.
seeing what Richie's send off looks like.
Hopefully,
Um,
it's better than teams. No offense to
yes.
what they, but that I felt there was, in my personal opinion, there was a lot of discrepancy the way the French Open sent off Dominic versus everyone else during that time. I felt like he deserved something
Yeah.
so much more, especially being deemed kind of the first Prince of Clay in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't give him a wild card into
That
the
was
main draw.
that's
For
crazy
one.
to me.
Yeah. Um, I think one of the big storylines coming into the clay court season was how's Jack gonna do on clay? Because coming off of the Miami Open, Draper was I think second or third in the race. So he had obviously announced himself and emerged as kind of a new top player, somebody who had
Hmm.
made that leap. And the clay resume was just barren. I mean, last year on clay, it was really rough for Draper. So there was that massive question mark of is the clay going to be a speed bump in his season, or is he going to be able to continue to contend for the biggest titles? And he's had a great clay season, highlighted, of course, by the final in Madrid. Conditions in Madrid a little bit different. It's never apples to apples with Roland Garros and the other clay events. But I even liked how he posted up in Rome. No letdown after that run to the final in Madrid, made the quarterfinals, was competitive against Alcaraz. So I think Jack should feel great about his clay season, and I favor him against Demon Orr to
Hmm.
make the quarterfinals here. Then you have Arthur Fils, who has a really tough draw.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's going to be, I think, a lot of fun to watch is watching Arthur with the French crowd being the top Frenchman now, try to navigate these first couple matches that are all going to be potentially difficult for him. Nicholas
Yeah.
Jarry in the first round, I think Jaume Munar probably in the second round, and then
Hmm.
Rublev, who's the 17 seed
That's a new
in the
one.
third round potentially.
I feel like seeing Rublev as a 17 seed at a slam is kind of rare in this instance right now.
Oh, really odd.
Really odd. And then in terms of the first round matchups, looking at this, we have to point out her catch versus Fonseca. I have I do you what's a bigger matchup to you to watch out for out of these three that I'm going to give you? Fonseca, Hurkacz, uh, Jari Feast, or Lehechka Thompson,
I'll probably Fonseca Hurkacz. Yeah,
right? It
I
has to
think
be the Brazilian versus the 30 seed. It's like a guaranteed like match of the day type of ordeal.
yeah, 1,000%. I mean, Fonseca breathes so much life right now into the first couple of days of these tournaments because he is an unseeded player, especially at the Masters 1000s where all the 32 seeds get a bye.
Yeah.
And in terms of popularity and intrigue and buzz right now, Fonseca's a top 20 seed easily, maybe a
Yeah.
top 15 seed. So it's fun to watch him right now, and it it hasn't been the European clay court season that he probably would have wanted,
Hmm.
although I really think the struggles are probably overblown as far as what we've seen. I mean, he
Okay.
he had a stinker at the challenger level in Estoril. He had a bad match in the first round against Fabian Marozsan, who's a really dangerous player,
Yep.
particularly in the first round of Masters 1000s. And other than that, there hasn't been a bad loss. So, I mean, in
No.
my opinion, the guy's allowed to have play two bad matches
Yeah.
without us having to sort of like reset how we feel about him or what we think about him.
Put him under a
But yeah, I mean,
microscope just to like
yeah,
see what's wrong with him. But in reality, it's okay to have a loss like that.
100%. And people are obviously just excited. Whenever there's a lot of excitement, there are some people who are, for some reason, anti that. And then every time he loses, they're going to jump on it as an opportunity to be like, see, y'all are overhyping him. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, he's just really young and he's going to lose in the first round sometimes.
Yes, I agree. And I actually forgot to mention this as well because of recent news. Muller, who just beat Zverev, playing Jakub Menšik, that's another first round match. Like I felt like this quarter was full of matchups that you could watch. You could literally pick one out of the hat and you'd be entertained. And after Muller just beat Zverev and now playing the Miami Open champion, it's one of those that I feel like with a French crowd, Muller might have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I always think it's difficult for these guys to come off of deep runs the week before
Mm-hmm.
a major, but I think that's going to be a competitive one. I love Draper Monfils in the second round. This
Ooh,
probably is the most stacked quarter.
yeah.
There's just a lot of good stuff in here.
Well, that actually brings me on to my next point. If we look at the second quarter, when I was writing down who was in this second quarter in terms of name power, we're looking at a lot of guys that are like Kabali, FAA, Sorundolo, Dimitrov, Medvedev, Wawrinka, Shapo, Novak. Like in terms of names, I felt like this quarter really stood out to me because you have up and comer Lerner Tien versus Zverev in the first round. You have Arnaldi versus FAA. You have Medvedev versus Nori. Like I felt
I
like
don't think it's better. I don't think it's
I
better than
don't
the
think it's
top
better.
quarter.
I don't think it's better in terms of quality. I think in terms of names, it's better.
And it might be just as interesting because if you're picking a winner in the top quarter, I think if you go against Yannick Sinner, you're in a massive minority.
Yes.
I'm certainly not doing it.
No.
Whereas in this second quarter, there's a lot of different choices. I think that you're gonna. I think Cerundolo is probably going to be a very trendy pick here. Not my choice. We
Okay.
can get into who I went with,
Okay.
but I think Cerundolo is going to be a trendy pick here. I
Okay.
think nobody, Novak. There's going to be some people who probably feel like he'll turn it on for a slam. Some people no.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's
Med-
gonna go ahead.
well, Medvedev, a lot of people write off because it's clay, but he's been to a Roland Garros quarterfinal.
Yeah. It's and Surrender too, like having his success on clay and just seeing what he's been able to turn around. I mean, the Arnaldi FAA match to me is another one where I'm like, could we see an early exit from FAA? Pedro
Yes,
Martinez
we could.
isn't
Yes.
like, yep, absolutely. Chapo versus Pedro Martinez. That's no slouch either. You have these guys that are. I would also, just because of the college tennis in me, Fernley versus Wawrinka in the first round. That's a fun one.
It is.
I and is it like I hate to say it, not hate to say it, but let me rephrase that. I feel like the way Zverev plays at the French as of late seems like a very easy pick to pick for going to the quarters.
Yeah.
Like,
So
what was your analysis in this side?
so my analysis was that I didn't want to pick Zverev because he's got horrible matchups here. He is 0-3 against Cerundolo lifetime. Just
That's
lost to him in
that's
Madrid.
crazy.
He has lost 10 out of his last 12 against Medvedev. He hates that matchup.
Oh yeah,
And Daniil, I mean, Daniil turns up for Sasha. I don't think he's the biggest Zverev fan, Mr. Medvedev. Anyway, that's not why the matchup is lopsided. It has much more to do with height of bounce and backhand and backhand. I think the flatness of Medvedev's backhand cross court really bothers Zverev. Um, and even on clay, I feel like some of those dynamics might play out. So it's never really like you're telling me Zverev needs to reverse an 0-3 head to head and a 10 out of last 12, a 2 and a 2 and 10 in the last 12 head to head in order to make the semis.
yeah.
That doesn't seem like a good idea, but that's where I land. Like I think he does it. He's made 4 straight semifinals at this tournament. he doesn't look that off to me. There's the allegations of some sharp Zverev decline. It doesn't land with me.
No.
For me, mentally, physically, post Australian Open final heartbreak, it was kind of predictable that Zverev was going to struggle. Also, the pressure of Sinner being suspended and trying to become number one. I think there was a lot of mental baggage there that he wasn't able to overcome, but I don't think that has much bearing on what he's going to do here.
No.
And I think he's the smartest pick. Yeah.
I don't think he's. I think this is would I wouldn't say the U.S. Open, but I would say here I feel like he's the most comfortable as of late.
Agree. I think it's his best. It's his best conditions.
It's his best conditions, and so if we look at that bottom half too, if we have Zverev going through, at which point is Novak losing? If we have Zverev
I think
going
he's going to
through,
lose. I think he's going to lose to Medvedev in the fourth round.
okay, just because of the
Which
matchup, or do you think it's just because of the way they've both been playing?
I don't think Novak is right. Which is that's not a bold statement. I mean, everybody
It's
can
not.
see that something's been off, right? But I don't think Geneva fully settles those doubts for me, and I just
No.
don't really believe in the on and off switch. Like the idea that Novak is just not going to be able to do anything outside the majors, and then he's going to suddenly be motivated and be able to play at an elite level because he feels like it.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that.
Hmm.
I don't think it's possible. It's not that and I understand the difficult position that Djokovic is in motivationally. He's
Hmm.
accomplished everything there is to accomplish, and I don't think it's surprising that the motivation aspect has become a challenge for him. It's just
Yeah.
human, and it's the best problem in the world you can possibly have. But I do think he's going to need to find a way if he's going to win major number 25
Yeah.
to sustain some momentum here. And whatever happened after Miami, I still don't understand. And I'm really surprised by it. Um, I'm really surprised that he pulled out of Rome. I still don't understand why. And I think just physically and mentally, he's more fragile than he's ever been. Daniil, Daniil has had this identity crisis. I don't think I'm not head over heels over the way Medvedev's been playing,
Yeah.
but I do think that he can grind him down. I think Medvedev can give a little throwback performance
Okay.
and grind down Djokovic from the back of the court and find a way through.
It's funny. It's interesting that you point out Novak kind of being at the weakest point we've seen him because I feel like Novak always needed some motivation to get to the next level if he was playing poorly. And I feel, and maybe this is a bold statement or not, but without Rafa or Roger, he doesn't have that same drive to beat them or to be greater than everyone else because no one really has the pedigree to say that they're on his level. If he loses, everyone says he has a bad day. But if he wins, it's like there's no glory in that because he knows he can beat all these guys. So maybe it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing, but maybe there's just, I'm not going to say no motivation left, but maybe he's realizing how much mental effort he needs to put in to drive himself to win 25.
Yeah, well, he wants to win 25. Like I don't think there's any lack of desire there. The problem
Mm-hmm.
is when you're in Madrid, how do you feel then? You know?
Yeah.
And right now it seems like it's as far as like the consistency at the Masters 1000s at least, where Djokovic has in the last year plus, he has not been a given to make it out of the
No.
third round of the Masters 1000. He's had
No.
a lot of bad losses in there. So you just feel like when he's in Madrid or Indian Wells, uh, he might not make it out of the first couple rounds because there's no longer that mental and physical consistency.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. So going back to the draw, we have Sinner coming out of Q1, Zverev coming out of Q2. So we have the 1 and 3 seeds right now.
Yep,
We're going to Q3. This is the Musetti Fritz part of the bracket. And we do have some more names out here, but definitely, is this the quote unquote weakest quarter of the draw?
for sure. Yeah.
And why would someone say that to someone listening or watching to this? Because
Yeah.
please break it down.
Right. Well, so first of all, the top seed in Taylor Fritz is 18th in the race right now, and I think his clay preference is kind of overblown. Like people, because Taylor is an American who's not outwardly like exceptionally athletic like a Tommy Paul.
Mm-hmm.
People are just like Taylor's bad on clay. Yeah, I don't really think that's true. Like he's made semifinals at Clay Masters 1000s each of the last 2 years until this one.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a clay problem, but he's not playing that well, period.
No.
So that is of the top four seeds, the one who stands out,
Mm-hmm.
obviously as the weakest one. Musetti as the 8th seed has had this exceptional run. He's been semifinals at all of the 1000s in the lead-in, and then he had the Olympic bronze if you go back even further to last year.
Mm-hmm.
So Musetti's playing awesome. He's not really a part of the weaker section allegations. But then you have Runa, who outside of Barcelona hasn't been past the second round all clay season.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's just been that feast or famine for Holger. Mahach has not been able to stay healthy.
No, he withdrew what, yesterday or 2 days ago? He's been
Yeah, he
dealing.
withdrew from Geneva, and it's just constant right now with him.
There's nothing
Uh,
healthy about that guy right now, and he's still the
no,
21 seed at this slam.
yeah. Then you have a bunch of Americans. You have Nakashima, who doesn't have much of a clay resume. You have Tiafo, who is clearly, clay is clearly his worst surface, losing record for his career at Roland Garros. Korda has done some stuff on clay in the past, but like he's actually just kind of struggled to have runs at majors since that Australian Open quarterfinal
Yeah.
3 years ago. So it's the quarter of opportunity without a doubt. Although, I think there's a guy in Musetti who I think everybody's going to be picking. Like it feels like a layup. It feels like a slam dunk.
Yeah. And I think if we look at like Mitchelson also recently getting to a clay court final, um, it's you have these guys that at least the Americans and wild card winner Emilio Nava, who won 3 straight challengers, and some of those were on the green clay. But again, for those that know, red clay is very different than green clay.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at Rune in that same top half of Musetti, I feel like clearly it's Musetti. And I have Musetti making to the end of this quarter because I know this year he's been red hot, and I think that for me, I think it's a clear pick. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the. I mean, Alcaraz and Sinner have been so good, so I mean that's a thing unto itself. Musetti has never been to a Roland Garros semifinal, but he has been to a major semifinal, and that's a big
Exactly.
part of it for me as well. I It would concern me if Lorenzo was suddenly the favorite to make it out of his quarter at a slam, and he'd never done it before. I would feel like, okay, that's a lot of pressure on his shoulders,
Okay.
and I do think that there's a lot of pressure on Musetti here. It's going to be unfamiliar territory for him to feel as if he's expected
Okay.
to make the final weekend here. But there
Gotcha.
was a lot of pressure in Rome. He was able to deal with that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Home crowd too. Like that's I think that's a different level than a slam because
I agree.
it's the like you said, it's the expectation. There's an expectation in the tennis world, and then there's an expectation in your home nation. In the home nation, you have everyone rooting for you. Not just your fans, but everyone there is hoping that you come away with that. So I think it's very different in that aspect for that. And I actually wanted to touch on Rune just for a little bit longer because when we look at him this year and we're looking at everyone else, I saw a headline somewhere that said Draper is now going to be the next I think we're just trying to replace the big three now. Ever since Novak, Rafa, and Roger dissolved, but someone said Draper is now going to be a part of that big three. Versus, my opinion, like Rune was the first one to say he's a part of that duo. When in reality, I feel like he's getting further and further away while everyone else is coming up.
Well, he he certainly hasn't lived up to the claim that he made a few years back. That
Yes,
I mean, look, he hasn't been up to their standard or at their level. Draper hasn't either, though.
I
So
know.
we're obsessed. You're right. I mean, we're obsessed with figuring out who the three is as if that's some sort of magic number and there has to be three. It's like this isn't the Olympics, right? There's not gold, silver, bronze, and then you're off
No,
the podium.
no.
So we're not constricted to this number three. And right now it is very clearly two.
Yes,
And until further notice, it's two.
yes. I agree, and I think that that pressure of putting this third pedestal on because we're so used to it. I mean, think about it. We went from big three to maybe there's a big four or a big five when Wawrinka and Murray would sprinkle in a slam here and there, right? So now it's okay. Who can we sprinkle in as the third to kind of solidify that consistent three number that we've always had? And right now, you're right. It's two, and there's only going to be two until someone else proves otherwise. So, I mean, that's how it is, and I think that's how it's going to be for the next year or two, unless something else changes. So,
Yeah, I mean, like we'll see. Maybe look, Jack is getting really good really fast, and I don't think he's that far away, but like
yeah,
he needs to I mean, okay, he did beat Alcaraz at Indian Wells. So that was something,
yep.
but he probably needs to do it at a slam, and I don't think he's beaten Sinner. Let me see, head to head. Oh no, he did in 2021 at Queens Club. Okay, but their US Open semifinal was one-sided. So Draper just hasn't done enough to
Be
be
in the
there yet,
conversation.
results wise.
Yeah, he's not. It's not big enough, and for that reason, Rune would Rune just lose to Musetti in
No, I
the
mean, well, Runa needs to make it to Musetti. Like that would be a fourth round match. The consistency, albeit at the slams. I mean, there haven't been too many bad losses, but uh, by and large, his floor is really low. He can lose to anybody on a bad day. And I think it comes down to his durability. And he's been sick a lot.
yeah.
His body has gotten in the way often. Like when he retired in the first round at Madrid with the knee thing, I didn't like how unsurprised I was by that. I was like, all right,
Hmm.
yep, like he just won Barcelona, so it feels like he's not going to be able to do anything in Madrid. And he ended up like hurting his knee and then he was out. But like physical toughness and durability and honestly being able to win when the body isn't right, like these are all actually important skills, I think, over the course of a really hard long season.
Yeah.
And I think Runa needs to get better in those areas.
100%. 100%. And last but surely not least, Q4, we got the Rude and Alcaraz section. This is a tricky one, at least leading up to whoever faces Alcaraz in the quarters, right? Like, is it? It's not a straightforward Rude Alcaraz quarterfinal, is it? Or am I overthinking this?
I struggle to see anything getting in the way of that.
Okay.
I'm maybe a little bit more Tommy Paul skeptical than most on this surface.
Okay.
Um, just because I think from a ball striking standpoint, he struggles to hang against the best, and it's hard for him to get to the net as frequently as I think he needs to. Like
Okay.
my favorite version of Tommy is one that's coming forward off of every short ball, and he just can't really do that on clay. So look, back-to-back Rome semis, I think that's I think that's worthy of like your attention and a
Hmm.
lot of respect. I just don't really see him beating Casper Ruud.
Hmm.
I don't see Ben Shelton or Stefanos Tsitsipas certainly beating Alcaraz. I'd be curious to watch Shelton against Tsitsipas. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Tsitsipas in general feels like there's a lot riding here. He's had his worst clay season by miles
Yeah.
since probably like 2017 when he first came up. He's only won 6 matches so far
Yeah.
on the dirt, and usually by now he's in the double digits, low teens, 14, 15 wins by now. So he's way off pace. I think it's a big French Open for him. Um, but Ruud has been final, semifinal last 3 years in
Yeah.
Paris.
That's that's another Prince of Clay that's never pushed forward. And that's another
No, I mean
one.
the weird thing about Casper is you feel so confident that he's going to get to those matches, and then
Yeah.
you don't feel like he's actually threatening once he's there.
No. And that's what's I guess we just built such an expectation seeing these players make it there. Like Tsitsipas against Novak, that's like the biggest one of like he was there, but then he wasn't. Team, another one. Like you have all these guys that make it to the final level and are playing, and then all of a sudden just disappear. Because I don't want to say
No,
cold.
I don't know though. I think team was terrifying for top players. I think players feared team in 2019 and 2020. And well, 2021 is when it fell off. But when team finally kind of reached his peak, the way the explosivity of his game, the offensive output,
Hmm.
the power from the back of the court, the weight of shot that just came at you relentlessly.
Okay.
I think like he beat Federer at Indian Wells. He beat Rafa on clay multiple times. He beat Djokovic at Roland Garros. The one year on that really windy semifinal. So I think team was not like Rude because against
Okay.
like the top players were afraid of team on a good day.
Gotcha.
But I think Alcaraz and Sinner and Zverev to some extent and Djokovic, if he's at his best, I just think they feel really comfortable against Casper.
Okay. You don't think that Casper has a level that makes them question what they're doing during a match or
No,
has
I
them
think
change
they think
anything?
exactly. I think they all feel like if they play their best, there's nothing Casper can do.
Okay. Is that I'm not even going to say the like phrase of like Rude being a baseline merchant, but it just seems like there's no variety that he offers to them that makes them struggle when they play their best, right?
Well, yeah, I mean the forehand is his weapon, but his backhand lags behind those guys. His serve lags behind most of them, other than Alcaraz. He's not as talented defensively.
Mm-hmm.
He, in general, is not always able to impose himself by taking time away and keeping the ball deep in the court. So I think that's why you see a guy like Sinner basically find ways to attack him off of his rally ball constantly, and that's when it gets kind of ugly.
Okay. I Interesting. So out of these, the matchup that and correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, because I want to hear your opinion on my opinion. The
Yeah.
Echeverry Tsitsipas first round. Echeverry's did he just make the semifinals? Or
Yeah, in Hamburg, yeah.
yeah, so going back to your idea to your statement earlier, those that go deep in a final before a Grand Slam usually don't do well in the Grand Slam. But I had this pick as Tsitsipas could be really tested or lose this first round match.
Yeah, he shouldn't. But I'm with you. Like I don't feel comfortable
At all
when Tsitsipas goes up against that caliber of player, no
on
matter
clay.
what. No, I mean, well, on any surface,
Okay.
you'd think on clay it should help Stefanos, but look, Echeverry, he's a he works hard every point. He's even off of both wings. He's very consistent, but Tsitsipas should be able to get into a rhythm against Echeverry and use his firepower and not feel all that rushed. So the guys who I think are scary for Tsitsipas are the players who bring a little bit more firepower to the table and find ways to attack his backhand in specific ways,
Hmm.
whether it be with weight of shot or rushing off of that side or attacking him off of his chip on that side.
Hmm.
Um, Players who can offensively figure out ways to just dissect that hole in his game are the
Gotcha.
players who I think do the best against Tsitsipas. And Echeverry isn't really that kind of player. I think he's again. There's a lot of great things that Echeverry does,
Hmm.
but top players should feel like they're able to impose their games against him.
Yeah. And another name that I wanted to point out to you was Pericard on that Alcaraz side. Also, have we not talked about Nishikori playing Alcaraz in the first round? Like
He just
who?
withdrew.
What now?
Yeah, it was like right before we got on.
No, don't tell
Yeah,
me that.
unfortunate.
No, son of a, son of a bitch. God. Well, that's unfortunate. When you
It
break,
is.
it's breaking news live recording. Thank you, Gil.
Yeah, yeah,
That's. Do we know who's in the
big time.
spot? Big time. Uh, do we know who's replacing him or no?
Um, no, I think I might have seen it, but I'm sure like Jose has it.
I'll find out afterwards. But
Okay.
speaking of, before I just got that really sad news, Pericard on that kind of bottom half where Alcaraz he's is he any threat to this to Alcaraz's side of the draw?
Sorry, one more time.
Uh, 31 seed, Petsy
Oh,
Pericard. Yeah,
Pericard. Yeah,
Pericard. Is he any way a threat?
no,
Being, I thought there was
he
more of an
doesn't.
explanation as a big French player, big serve, big forehand
Yeah,
in
you just
France.
you have to break
No.
serve. You have to break serve. Again, like I think what Pechikar is doing as a server is awesome and it's unlike anything we've ever seen. And I think he has a chance to be like kind of bring that serve bot meta even further than Isner did and Karlovic did and certainly like Raonic did in terms of what he's doing on the second serve. So I'm very intrigued by
Mhm.
GMP as a server, and I think he has an opportunity to be maybe the best server of all time, and I'm curious to see if he can
Wow.
get there statistically.
I like that.
But he doesn't break serve, and you can't win in this game ultimately. Phil, do you know what his break percentage is this year?
His break percentage off the top of my head, I could not tell you, Gil. What
No,
is
but
it?
okay, let me just. So it's 6.3%.
His breaking of other people's serves.
Yeah, yeah, 6.3% at tour level. I'm not counting challengers, which at the
Hold
challenger level
on.
it's been
Hold on.
way better.
So hold on.
Um,
What? Hold on. You're telling me it's less than 10%.
yes,
What's the average?
the tour average.
Yeah.
Um,
The tour average has to be above, I want to say
well,
20.
here I'll give you an idea. I'm gonna go to the top 50
Okay.
and we'll look
Six
at these guys in the middle. So
6.8% break. Oh
it's
my God.
I'll tell you the next worst is Kontan Alice, who's at 13.2%. So the second worst player in the top 50 is twice as good at breaking serve as Pechi Pericard. The average, it looks like, is around 20%, maybe
That's
19%.
that's six.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind, Gil. That was just all right. It's great. That's incredible. How do you 6%?
Yeah. He's holding at 85, 86%.
That doesing matter.
It doesn't
The
matter.
it doesn't matter. It
No.
really
Well,
doesn't
that's why
matter.
his win-loss record this year at tour level is 4-9.
Yeah, because he can't. That's no, that's too much. That's too much of a shock to me to recover from that statement. I'm sorry. Wow. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. All right, moving on. So I'm gonna get through this. So we have, if we go top down, we essentially have Sinner. Who do we pick here? We pick Zverev, Musetti, and Alcaraz. That would
Yep.
be our final four. Did you have Sinner or Alcaraz being the winners?
Alcaraz
Okay.
is my pick
Over Sinner?
over Sinner. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any chance that one of them doesn't make the final? Because I feel like it's been a two-horse race. Whether or not they neither of them make it seems like the biggest long shot of the tournament.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, look, there's coming into a Zverev Sinner semifinal, if we get there, you're going to hear a lot of stuff about Yonex clay court resume. You're going to hear that he's 1-9 against top 5 players on clay in his career. You're going to hear that he's only won one title on clay, and it was a 250 3 years ago in Umag. So the clay court resume is lacking for Sinner, and that's what you're going to hear. It doesn't matter to me. Like, if I look at the context around the past 2 years when Sinner has emerged as an elite player, he hasn't really played clay events much at all. It's certainly not healthy. And when he has, he's just lost to Alcaraz, 5-set French Open semifinal last year, Rome final this year. So the argument that like Sinner's clay resume is some sort of red flag, it doesn't land with me.
Okay.
And I would still favor him against Zverev, but I'm just telling you that that's the kind of stuff that you're going to hear. And then for Alcaraz, well, he's been consistent this clay season, but there's still a thought that he can get sloppy and that he can throw in a bad match. It's just that best of 5, there's so much time for him to figure it out, and when it clicks into place, just feels like nobody can hang with him. So yeah, I mean, I'm expecting chalk. And then here's the other thing I'll say to that question, Phil.
Mhm.
It's best of 5 on clay. That is bad for the underdog.
Yeah.
You don't get like a lot of serve variants where you can kind of serve your way through matches, or you can redline your way through matches, or you can hold serve, force tie breaks, and like just be the more clutch player. All of these ways that open up avenues to kind of win in maybe a more fluky fashion when the margins are small. We see that at Wimbledon. We see that on quicker surfaces. Like that goes out the window at Roland Garros. You're going to have to play rallies.
Yeah.
You're going to have to hit a lot of shots. And the more shots you're hitting against these top guys, the more you're probably falling behind because there's a talent gap.
Okay. And in that regard too, and from that as well, when we look at some of these guys that are up 2 sets to love and then all of a sudden just can't turn it or keep their foot on the gas, it's because the elite players figure out how to essentially destabilize their rhythm within the next set and a half, which then turns it completely around for them, right?
Oh, or it's because the better player or the favorite coming in, like they are just better. So chances are, if you give them more opportunities to show that they're better versus less opportunities,
Yeah.
that they're more likely to win the match. Like that's why it's a simple math equation where best of 5 is not good for the underdog. It is good for the favorite. There is more time for them to separate themselves as the more talented or the higher ability player.
Mm.
You know,
It
um,
I do, and I think that's the first time I've heard that when it comes to best of five versus best of three. And if we look at that as a whole, do you think that's better if we started making the smaller tournaments, like say the 1000s, if we started making the finals 3 out of 5? Do you think that would be better for tennis, or do you think that will kind of not change as much when it comes to the level or fluky wins, as you would say?
yeah, I'm not looking for best of five finals. It's not something that I desire. And also that's not where we're seeing most of the big upsets.
Hmm.
What we've seen at Masters 1000s is just a lot of volatility, I think, in the first few rounds that we weren't seeing for a long time. And I think that has to do with the freakish consistency of the big four. I always put Murray in here when we're talking about Masters
Yeah.
1000s because he was so good at those events.
Yep.
Um, I think it's already a really long, hard physical season. You don't need 4 or 5 hour finals at Masters 1000s. Ask players to post up the next week.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not looking for that. And I also like it that so the Masters are starting to feel more and more like majors because of the format. I want there to be separation. I want the majors to feel different,
Hmm.
and I want the 1000s to feel not worse, but I want them to have their own special thing. And
Yeah.
I felt like the 1 week format
Yeah.
with the 56 draw, where
Yeah.
it was great matchups right away,
Yeah.
and it was just the pacing and the man, it was just a wealth of great matches from start to finish. I think that format was unique to the majors and awesome in its
Hmm.
own way. I miss that because the new master, I didn't know that we were going to go here, but the new Masters 1000 format, it feels like a watered down major. It feels like
Yeah.
a major that's been diminished by 30-40%.
Interesting. I agree with it trying to be like a smaller major, and I didn't know this was going to go here either. So this is a I love this topic because it's just such a the Monte Carlo has mastered, I feel like, the 1 week schedule so well, and I think a lot of people were applauding that versus Miami and Indian Wells, which is now a week and a half too, which is that diluted Grand Slam format.
They all used to be 1 week, except for Miami and Indian Wells. And then, March felt like its own thing, which was cool.
Yeah.
Sunshine double.
Yep.
Uh, and it stood out and it was kind of special in that way.
Mhm.
And it was long. It felt like a big,
It's a big event. There was the
yeah,
fit. It was the fit. They were
a
trying to
big
be the
two
fit.
events though.
Yeah, big two events, and they were both kind of like the fifth slam that everyone's trying to
Yep.
find now. They're
Yep.
trying to
And
create.
yeah. So that took all of March. And that's why March almost had its own thing blocked off.
Yeah.
Now they're all like that, other than Monte Carlo and I think Bear C.
Yeah.
And as a result, Monte Carlo and Bear C, they they feel special. And fans, I think it's a breath of fresh air when those events come around.
I just think it's better because it doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't make the schedule longer. It actually gives top players quality over quantity, and you have the opportunity to go play somewhere. Not like it's not like they're now adding challengers in the second week of these Masters 1000, so that way players can go play now while the Masters 1000 is still going on. But it's not, you're trying to make it such a big ordeal that it's not giving, I just don't think it makes it special anymore.
Yeah,
It,
but look, the reasons why they made the change, I mean, they argued that it would be better for players in rest. That's proven to be completely untrue. All of the players refute that and deny that. But they are getting more out of their premium product, and it's probably helping them from a dollars and cents standpoint just by dragging out these events. But ultimately, like long term, I think they've hurt the product.
I just feel like behind the scenes, there's a lot going on that could make it better, but it's not happening at the same time. Um, Gil, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Again, it's always fun having you on the channel and the podcast to talk about this kind of stuff. And if you aren't following Gil, also, by the way, Gil has become a influencer now on Instagram. He now does vlog. He now does vlogs and his day in the life. So I would highly recommend you now follow him on Instagram. It's actually, if you talk about a breath of fresh air, Gil doing this kind of format stuff is awesome. So, Gil, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to check out Monday Match Analysis down in the description below or the podcast bio. Make sure you're following him on all social media. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're subscribed. Notifications turned on. Make sure you like the video. And Gil, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil. Never thought it would come to this, being an Instagram influencer.
You're mastering it really quickly. I will say that. Thanks, Gil.
Thanks.